Hello, Chapter 12, the Science Center. Let's learn about some science. Remember that the best way for little kids to learn anything is to be hands on and stuff they're interested in. So if you think you're going to do chemistry while they watch you, not going to work. Okay, so your learning objectives are to understand how science is done in the early childhood classroom. You're in the right place for that. Promoting sensory exploration, like we talked about in math, manipulation, sensory exploration, touching, tasting, hearing, smelling, all of those things. Supporting kids' curiosity. Curiosity is often messy. It can be frustrating, but that's part of learning things. So it's important that you give children opportunities to be curious and to promote, and that you promote and encourage their curiosity. Setting up the Science Center, understanding the scientific method, providing cognitive science activities, emotional science activities, language science activities, social science activities, creative science activities, understanding your role, and documenting children's learning. One thing I really like about this textbook is that it shows you in each of the centers or learning areas like science how you can do science and also work on social emotional skills. You can also work on language skills. So when young children are learning, they are learning across the whole spectrum. Like you're not just taking out language. Whenever you're talking to a child, you're also developing social emotional skills, right? So when you are doing science, a science experiment in a group, you're working on social emotional skills. When you are looking at how, different colors mix and blend together, that's a creative and a science activity. So there's no in early childhood, there's no classes. Like you don't go to math class, you don't go to language class. It's all happening all the time. And it's happening both in the classroom and outside of the classroom for kids. So it's investigation. For early childhood, science is figuring things out. And when a preschooler figures out how to use a screwdriver to unscrew something, that is science. It's engineering. It's also small motor skills, right? So that's an example of science and in different realms, like I was talking about before. So it's interacting physically, it's finding things out, and it's exploring things through play. So your senses are sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, right? And we know that, Piaget's talking about sensory motor um, stage of development. That's when you're figuring things out through your senses. So younger children, they're learning everything through their senses because they can't read about it. They can't, sit down and watch a lecture about it. They have to figure it out by touching it, by tasting it, by listening to it, right? So that's sensory exploration. Curiosity is how children learn through exploration. And curiosity is the actual thinking about what is happening. How is this happening? What's going to happen next? How do I make this do that thing? Right? So, one of the ways that you can help children develop their curiosity is to be curious yourself. You may know the answer to the question, what's going to happen if I put salt on this block of ice? You may know that answer, but you need to show them that the way that we think about things is we ask questions and then we do the things to find the answer. Okay. So you need to be a curious role model. And with older kids, when they ask you questions, you turn that question back on them. So, why is the rain turning into ice outside? Why do you think that is your answer. And then we talk through how could we figure that out, right? And kids will help you, older kids will help you think through those things. Make science personal. This is about setting up the Science Center. Make it personal. You want things that kids know about and understand, all kinds of tools. You want measuring tapes, and you want scales, and you want microscopes, and you want magnifying glasses. You want tools that they can use to figure stuff out. Books on topics you are currently investigating, space for an aquarium, a terrarium, animal homes. An aquarium or a terrarium is a fantastic idea. If you're allowed to have a pet at your school, that's a great place to have it. Just a terrarium to watch things grow is a really good idea. So, the scientific method, which you learned long, long ago, little kids do this, right? It's interesting to me how much the scientific method is sort of informed by our natural way of thinking. And then when we think about the scientific method, it becomes a way for us to think through things. So, sort of innately, we ask questions and we form hypotheses, and then we figure out more information, then we draw conclusions and we build ideas. And so this is sort of the innate way that you think through things. And then when you think about applying the scientific method, it gives you even more structure and a focus to that thinking. So kids already do the scientific method to a certain extent, but when you talk about it this way, it helps them think about thinking, which is kind of a complex idea for kids. But when you stop to think about the way you think, it helps your future thinking, if that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, but if you think about it, it makes sense. So you can teach preschoolers the scientific method. In fact, it's a really good idea to do. And if you notice a little bit, the project approach that we're working on kind of follows along the scientific method in a way. You start out asking questions, and then you sort of make predictions, and then you go out and you find the answers to those questions, and you decide, okay, this makes sense, right? And then, sort of different from the scientific method, but the project approach is that then you show what you've learned. And so the project approach really takes kind of a basis of the scientific method to help children investigate topics. So even this might be too conceptual, but you could almost do a project approach on the scientific method. That would be interesting. It would be really for older kids because it's so conceptual. It's not dealing in real things, but it's a way to teach, third or fourth graders. You could do a project approach on the scientific method. That might be kind of cool. Some activities to promote cognitive development in science. Have children concentrate on how, not why. How did this happen? This is also a good segue into predictions. What's going to happen next? If we know how this happened, then what do we think will happen next? Shadows, writing about science in the parent newsletter to help parents understand and participate, and then listening to children's comments and questions and leading the class in appropriate science direction. Okay. Emotional development through science. Focus activities on children personally so that they have some of their self-development, right, happening. Picture books, following children's interests, right? This is important. This is all language development. Using big science words, right? When you're talking about science, using those words that are going to help increase their vocabulary, right? Microscope, that's a big word. Photosynthesis, or what's it called when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly? Whatever that is. Whatever that is. Those important words that are important science words, but also help children develop their vocabulary. Doing science as groups and doing teams and partners and that kind of stuff is really important for social development. And then these are just some very specific activities, and this is all in your book. Creative development, having them do, if you're exploring a topic, a science topic about trees or leaves, having them draw or color or make some sort of representation of that, letting them lead the way, letting them think creatively. Setting up your science center, make sure it's easy for children to use. Do things in your science center that are interesting to them and follow what they're interested in. If you have a kid in your class who's super interested in bugs, get all kinds of little bugs, books about bugs, magnifying glasses, that kind of stuff. Help them understand the scientific method. I have, I'll see if I can find it. There are a lot of preschool versions of the scientific method, even cards with illustrations. So ask questions, and it's like a kid raising his hand or a question mark or something to help them remember. The first thing we do is we ask questions, and then we make predictions. Okay. Help them document their learning. So make sure you have places in your science center with notebooks or clipboards or places for them to write down what they're learning about. Documentation, once again, because your textbook really focuses on manipulation, mastery, and meaning. Having discussions, watching and observing children and how they're learning and what they're doing, and then figuring out at what level they are, and then through those discussions figuring out what they want to do next, what they're interested in, where you can take them from there. So there you go. That's science.